Hi, this is Ushio, and welcome back to Betweenside. We shall keep exploring the room, because I get the feeling 20 pages written. We're in Act 2, and it's kind of done like a theatre production, so I'm assuming that, because the curtains went down when Act 1 ended, so I'm guessing we're approaching the end of the second act. Maybe one or two more parts, and then we're there. So I guess we're going to look around. Hello, doggy. The other servants and I returned to the house before dawn's light alerted the master of our absence. We waited for his return from the carnival. He strode through the door with a tenacious grin on his face. "Did you enjoy the festivities, sir?" an attendant asked. "Yes, I had a most constructive night. When evening passed, I was informed that one of my master's friends, Lucchesi, would be visiting. Fetch the posh sherry from the cellar, I was told. I was at the back, where a pile of bones caught my eye. Something different about them. I shook my head and returned to the house with the bottle." Pile of bones? What, was that the dog? Okay, we'll go with that. A painting of the Jack Russell. You assume it must be Clerval, Vincent's most recent pet, having died only 2 years ago. Through his life he kept 9 dogs. The first when he was a child. They were the only companions his parents let him show affection toward. So he learned to keep his heart hidden to those accepted animals, trusting them to bear his soul. Leave it to the younger nephew, for he too knew what it was to be left down by family. That's harsh. Reminded him that too much of his father sat in judgment. Give it to the niece, who reminded him of the mother who tried to spare him from a deeper woe. Let's go with the niece. Alright. So, I don't know. Let's stick with the animal theme. Let's go for the antlers this time. Having lost my pursuers, I ran into a deserted passage. Checking to see that I was alone, I knelt down and unwrapped the bundle in my arms, placing on the ground a loaf of bread, 2 turnips and 1 sprout. I felt not proud of stealing from a market folk, but my survival was worth more than my pride. Suddenly I heard breathing, so rose to my feet and turned. Not 2 paces away stood a man 6 foot tall and clad in armour resembling the badger. His heavy gauntlet crushed my nose, and I fell to the floor in a shower of blood and bone. Through blurry eyes I saw him and turned to leave. "Why do you do this, Lord Gawain?" I pleaded. He did not answer. Okay, this is really weird. As the gentleman of the aristocracy and former soldier, people would often assume that Vincent enjoyed hunting. He did not. Tired of people's incredulity, he found these deer antlers at a jumble sale in the Cotswolds. "Yeah," he would say when asked if he hunted, "that's one of mine," pointing to the antlers. This succeeded in finishing most conversations on hunting, as Vincent put on the nerve having nothing more to say or learn about the subject. Sometimes a particularly nosy guest would inquire further on the trophy. Where did he kill it? Was it an exciting hunt? "I prefer not to talk about it," Vincent would say. "The deer was a very close friend of mine." Okay, younger nephew, to remind him that lying is a skill worth constant practice. The niece, remind her that the truth is rarely found in obvious places. The elder nephew, as warning not to suffer wearisome guests. Younger nephew, you can have that. Also, this just appeared. Brave as a badger. So that wasn't there before. Okay, we've changed the environment. I'm interested. Does that appear in the reflection? It does not. It seems to be... Is this like the living side? And this is like the present, so it's kind of like the dead side? Actually, what is that over there? There's like a diagonal thing by a table. Oh, so the sword's fallen down. Okay, let's check out the sword. Or the gramophone. Actually, what? Oh, there's that symbol. Yeah. This is the logo of the game. So this is the dark shit. Let's try this one. The merchant ship creaked northward toward England, the port of Rio de Janeiro sinking below the horizon. 4 ex-convicts sat locked in the prison deck, so far from the land that had been their exile, yet still a ways from home. It had been 3 years since they had seen their family, their wives, and the land they worked in Dorset. All they'd wanted was a fair day's pay. Okay. Diary of Elizabeth someone Tresillian. Entry 1. Okay. 1821. So we're going back, because I think this game's set in the 1930s. "I must rest if I'm able to recuperate. My husband says he would not like me writing my diary, but I managed to sneak a few pages in with me. Without my expressions I would have nothing. He wouldn't understand. The doctor says my illness is a passing hysteria, and the best thing for me to do is avoid all stimulation that might possibly excite me. My husband took away my books. He knows best, I'm sure. My Prometheus always knows best. Where are my eyes? Okay. Oh, that was the yellow wallpaper. What the fuck? That just changed. Normally things kick in as you move, but no, it did it on its own. Okay, so we're behind the antlers. Is that like a teapot through the window? Okay. Shall we? Oh, we can still see through the mirror. That's weird. Alright, so let's go check out the teapot. It's right in the distance. Okay. So, does anybody want a cup of tea? The kettle's boiling. Alright, let's check this out then. Walter Tresillian was a shell of a man. He agreed to give Joan the role his sister and his father had served for so many decades. Or maybe he thought Joan was his father. There was confusion. Joan kept the house running. The Tresillian children were at least of school age and seemed mostly unhurt by their mother's absence. All except for the middle boy, Vincent. Something was troubling about him. Lucien must have kept his silent, for the constabulary never came looking for Joan. Decades passed, and the Tresillians grew up. They left to fight wars and forge dynasties. Walter died after most of his children, and the last Tresillian retired to his family estate. Vincent never asked Joan about his past. There was a little unspoken affection between them, but they maintained the distance of their respective positions. The Great War raged and dwindled, and Joan became an old man. He sat in his favourite armchair and thought about his life, how it wasn't until he stopped running that he found peace and someone to share it with. It was getting late, and he would soon need to return to his own home. Eli would be worried. 2 days previous, Vincent had died, physically at least. In other ways, the life in him seemed to have expired long ago. There was a sudden knock at the door. Joan rose and opened it. A figure stood sodden in the rain. "Hello," they said. "I'm here to inventory the items left in the will of Mr. Tresillian." "Ain't right," Joan said, nosing round his keepsake at this hour. "What, so Joan's the housekeeper?" Okay. So, okay, weird. So, I was going to check out the sword. So, that person's still outside. So, yeah, I'll stick with that. Let's check out this sword. The young man breathed heavily and clenched his blistered hands. He was led to the upstairs room of the cottage and stood in front of a painting. It depicted a skeleton, one who had held an hourglass, showing the symbol of the moon, and in the other a stick to the sun. "Do you swear solidarity?" the leader asked. The young farmhand placed his hand on his Bible. "I do. Welcome to the Friendly Society." What, he joined some kind of cult? Sounds creepy. "A weapon that has been in the family since Vincent's great-grandfather, yet has served martial houses since the little soldier's boot dropped. It has witnessed such blood cut from enemies of current and fallen empires to carve a legacy. The hilt changes with the fashion of the times, but the blade remains the same. As you approach it, you hear it singing light harmonious chords like a church choir. The words are indecipherable, yet the meaning's clear. The sword is happy, gratified for the time being." Okay, got the nephew, who served in the cavalry, who tries to run away from the purpose but will fall like all the others. Wow. Elder nephew, to remind him that serving behind the desk does little to satisfy the blood debt. And then you got the niece, as the only one who could bend it to her will and force restitution upon the family's rivals. Let's give it to the niece. I haven't given it to anything to the elder nephew in this session, but too bad. So, what shall we look at? How about this chest? The mercenaries checked their weapons as the day began to wane. Their captain surveyed the land he was charged to defend. In his hand, a letter the owner had received the day before. It said, "Sir, you would be advised to consider the pay of the good men that work the fields thou hold. Thou shalt hear further from me when they are in flames. Swing." Creepy. A camphor trunk from the island of Java. Its contents are of no value. Spare sheets and covers. The trunk itself, however, is an object much desired. Delicate depictions of devilish detail adorn the lid. A sketch sent to the valuers was much discussed. Were they religious or merely decorative symbols? Looking now upon them, you feel they have some deeper purpose. As children, the eldest nephew and niece would amuse themselves with the trunk. Once they played hide and seek with a visiting third cousin. The boy was no more than 5. A maid who was dusting the room swore she saw the child enter the trunk, and never left in the few minutes it took for the nephew and niece to look inside. It contained only sheets and covers. Okay, Got the youngest nephew. He was spoken of a desire to turn the trunk into firewood. Leave it to the niece, who wishes to store that which she cannot throw away. The eldest nephew. As for him, it evokes the contented merriment of childhood. Fuck the eldest nephew. Youngest nephew gets this. Alright. What else? All this stuff up here. But, I don't know, it's the rose that catches my eye. Let's try this. Monday, April 21st, 1834. The streets of London could be mistaken for the fields of war. 8 battalions of infantry lined the roads, joined by cavalry, lancers and dragoons. 30 cannons lay ready to wreak chaos. 100,000 people marched toward Parliament. The troops stood ready to defend the state from its people. That's pretty messed up. Okay. Upon Vincent's bedsheets rested gentle rose. There is no note or other indication of where it came from. The caretaker did not seem sentimental, nor close enough to Mr. Tresillian to leave it. Sydney, Francis and James, his only close relatives, are in London awaiting your return. For the past few years, he had not even left the chamber. He knew few people. Outside the context of work or family, Vincent never had a wife nor children of his own, though he bore great affection toward his sisters, especially after she passed. Even at a young age, he refused to play the suitor. Vincent was a strapping young man, yet he never married, nor, as far as his peers ever knew, pursued a relationship. Some muttered that he saw himself above such things. Vincent would have said he had little interest in sexuality, but was not above a little bit of romance. Okay. So, I guess we should pursue... Yeah, there's a cluster of stuff up here. I don't believe there's any new things with the creepy symbol. There's a chair. Nice chair. Painting with the skull. Alright, skull painting. Vincent looked up at his father with tears in his eyes. What have you learned, boy? I don't know. That the world... I can't spell. The world... I still can't spell. World is a tired and unpleasant place. I wish I could hold it more. I can't spell dearly. So I'm trying to keep it depressing in line with the game. So we're going to go with that. Also, I like turtles very much. How much do I need to type? Okay, there we go. There we go. Vincent had a quiet fondness of plants. Once as a child he managed to plot in the family garden, but he was asked to stop by the gardener after all he tended to withered. It seemed he was born with a black thumb, an astonishing capacity for discouraging plants from growth. Throughout his life he tried to care for little specimens, flowers, herbs, even cacti failed no matter what affection he put into their nurture. In time he yielded, instead choosing to commission a local artist to paint his favourite flower, an ode to life that could not decay. Yet looking closely at the image, you notice the petals are starting to brown. Okay, we've got the older nephew, for his uncle feared an undecorated office would make him seem inhuman. Younger nephew, who had the gift of life as well as death. And leave it to the niece to remind her that all things die eventually. Let's give it to the older nephew. Alright, so what is next? How about the record? Vincent secretly adored music. It was one of his few surviving passions. His love of song was not always so private. In boarding school, the flute was his solitary vice. Vincent's young military career was defined by abrasive silence, waiting days or weeks between orders. In the grinding dark vaults, he sustained light by escaping to his inner world. He would imagine himself playing the melodies he knew, and when he ran out, he began to think of new ones. While injured, he began to write them down. For 3 months, he convalesced in London. He met a young artist called Alphonse and took up lodgings with him. Vincent was encouraged by his new partner to hone his craft. He had a natural improvisational talent in composition, the next Schubert, Alphonse called him. So yeah, we did this before. And yeah, he quit and then he got sent back to it. Vincent resigned his commission with the military to pursue a life of art. He could survive on the money he had until he found success. 2 weeks after his discharge, a letter arrived from Anne Tresillian, Vincent's mother. She explained that his father was displeased and his allowance was to be stopped until such time as he regained his senses. Vincent replied to plead his case, but his mother never answered, and so Vincent re-enlisted. His superior officer, a friend of the family, saw his previous resignation expunged from the files, his military record made flawless again. He parted with Alphonse and made sure he would never seek him again. The phonograph appears worn from near constant use. You try to turn it on, but it won't. Cranking it doesn't help, so you give up. You are sure you heard it play not long ago. Still, it seems to be in serviceable condition, and a professional could no doubt see it working. Okay, give it to the niece to help her better understand her uncle, elder nephew, who had nurtured a simulacrum of taste to fool his peers, and the younger nephew to help him feel elsewhere. Younger nephew. Oh, people. Okay, so there's someone here and there's someone here. Last time, we tried to jump out of the window. I guess this time, what can we hide in the box? You spin around. The figures are converging on you. The music getting louder, deafening. You can't run. The door is locked. You can't fight, for there are too many. The old camphor chest creaks as you force it open. You throw sheets and pillowcases to the floor, making room. The figures get closer, and as they are nearly upon you, you climb inside. Closing your eyes, you grip the top of the chest shut and wait. Wait. The next morning, the caretaker comes to check on the room, and seeing the scattered bedclothes finds you in the chest, wide awake, made silly by fright. After some debate, at least he convinces you to climb out. Alone in the dark, you see, the caretaker says. Mind plays tricks on you, makes you see things that aren't really there. This place really creeps me out. You nod. How absurd you've been. You must have fallen asleep. Confused dream for reality. How absurd. It must have been a dream. Before you leave, you recall that you were going to gift the brandy to the caretaker. He decides after that he can forego tending the family or of your employers of the incident. You thank him and take the next train back to London. You want to be in your own lodgings. You want to rest. The younger nephew would take over the responsibility for the Imperial Ivory Corporation. Last time the niece got it. It was obvious from Vincent's will that Sidney L.T. Lansdell, his younger nephew, was his favourite. With a guile few knew he possessed, he came to lead the company and family. Once patriarch, he set about dismantling the family's world, their business, their properties gone. His siblings watched in shock as he demolished everything that gave them status, abandoning the last wealth with reparations and repayments. Nearly 20 years later, the family was without worth. It had lost all standing. Sidney lived in a small cottage outside London with a wife, 2 daughters, and a son, raised not of the family tradition. As far as the younger nephew was concerned, the family's debts were concluded. Okay, and that is it. We are done. Oh man, Betweenside, that was pretty creepy actually. And yeah, it had quite a deliberate pace. And so, if you were willing to take your time and gradually step your way through and kind of gradually explore and work out some of the... Oh, we don't know who this man is. Interesting. So yeah, it was interesting. You had the story. You kind of pieced it together a little bit. We didn't get to read everything. And so, if you play it again, you can see some of the hidden mysteries. But yeah, this was cool. Let's go outside. Amongst the black grass and the desiccated phosphoruit, still pinkly luminous, wove an emerald insect. Its antenna shuddered as it searched for food. A vast boot came down, mashing the creature into the ground. A taste of red-blue blood splashed over the dry earth, seeping into the cracks and down below the outside. In the twilight stood a heavy-clad figure. Its dress was of ramshackle cloth, leather and metal fused into sealed armour. The traveller looked through the thick fabric that covered its face and saw at last the heaven-high walls of a settlement. It had been 6 months since they had been cast out of their home into the pestilent outside. 6 months without food or water or light conversation. 6 months since they had died. The traveller approached the settlement, and with their immense gauntlets thumped the metal gates that stood in their way. Time passed, how long the figure could no longer comprehend. "Who are you?" a gruff woman shouted from behind the walls. Her accent sounded northern, from when there was a north. "I'm a traveller. I seek refuge," the figure replied. "Go away." "We've got food and no water to spare." "That won't be a problem. All I require is a bed where I might rest, and people to hear my tale." "Oh," the woman said. "How much obol you got?" The figure sighed. "How many do you need?" 12 pieces. The figure looked down and considered the cost. Maybe a toe or a finger, perhaps a loss of perception, or a modest erosion of thought. It held out its left hand. And 12 copper coins appeared in a shimmer of dark. 12 more obols added to the traveller's debt. The woman opened a small window in the gate, and once the coins were placed inside, the hole slammed shut. Then there was a clunk of a metal lock. Only now did the figure hear the high-pitched whine that seemed to come from nowhere and never leave. The gatekeeper hurried the figure inside, then flung the gate shut, pushing a wave of mist back into the outside. "You can take that suit off," she said as they walked together into the inn. "The fire plague won't get you in the ear." She seemed a kind enough woman. Her amber skin bore red-black marks of infection. She did not have long. "Thank you," the figure said, and removed its helmet to feel once again the refreshing wind on its bones. Okay, that was the end. We got an achievement, Lost in Darkness and Distance. Yeah, so that was kind of creepy. It doesn't tell you explicitly everything that's going on. You kind of have to piece it together for yourself. But I did enjoy this. It was kind of odd, kind of weird and unnerving. But it was cool. And I hope you enjoyed it as well. And this is Ushio signing off. And hopefully I will see you next time.